Hello, good evening and welcome to this Leggett International Real Estate webinar for the 25th of April 2023, organised by Lumen. My name is Andy Davies. I'm with you for the next hour along with our fabulous panel, hoping and doing their best to help you make a decision about whether you want to buy a property in France or you want to live here permanently, or whether you want to use it as a holiday home. We will go through the panel, say hello to them all, and then we will get straight to the questions. Questions have been submitted in advance, but if you do have a question, there is a question box on your screen and you can ask that question. If I have a chance to ask it, I will do my very best. So let's do the panel, shall we? Let's say hello to them all. Let's say hello to Joanna first.
Hi everyone, I'm Joanna Leggett. Thank you for coming along this evening. We're Leggett IMMOBILIER, so we're based in France. We've got 700 agents in all areas of France. So hopefully we'll be able to answer any of your questions, whether it's on areas or buying and selling in France.
Okay, Joanna, let's go to Thomas from Blevins Franks.
Hello everyone, my name is Tom Marin. I'm one of the partners for Blevins Franks. We provide strategic tax and financial planning advice to people who are thinking about moving to France or have already moved to France, in terms of helping them reorganise their affairs and situation to be as tax efficient as possible for France. I personally have been in the business for nearly 8 years, and I'm the partner for Blevins Franks in Béziers. I also spend a lot of time now in Valbonne, travelling up and down the Mediterranean coast.
Very nice for you, Thomas. Let's go to Paulette. She's not on screen, but she is there. Hello, Paulette.
Hi, I'm the co-founder and manager of Agence AXA International. We're a dedicated English-speaking agency covering the whole of France for any clients who want or need an English-speaking service, and we offer all products that a normal AXA agency would offer, like house, car insurance, bank accounts, things like that. So, but I say with all of our staff are native or native level English speakers.
Okay, thanks, Paulette. And on my right on my screen is Charles.
Bonsoir everyone, nice to see you all. I am Charles Cramay. I am head of Leggett Property Management, and at Leggett Property Management we're here to help you look after your second home in France and rent it out to try to monetize it. So we today have 41 property managers, I would say all across the country, but a bit everywhere in France, from Brittany to Avignon and in the Alps as well. We look after 140 properties at the moment, and we are here to make sure that it's well looked after and that you can earn money with it.
Okay, thank you, Charles. And to Charles's right is Tracy.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Tracy Viginetti. I'm the founder of LBS. I have been living in France for over 30 years, and myself and my team of 4 are dedicated to help people like yourselves who want to move, live or create a business in France. We provide dedicated agents to help you with every step of the process, from visas and immigration, healthcare. It could also be driving license, car registrations and anything in between.
Thank you. And then finally, last but no means least, is Jonathan from Lumen.
Hi, good evening everyone. I'm Jonathan Watson from Lumen. I'm Associate Director. I've been working here 14 years, looking after the currency transactions of anyone buying or selling property in France. We work in partnership with lots of different agents in France, in terms of the people on your screen, notaires, all the different parties involved in the French property transaction process. And yes, hopefully give you some good answers to some questions this evening, try and give you a bit of insight into how this all works. So what we've just put up on your screen hopefully now is a poll. If we can get some answers, that'd be great. Just helpful for us to get a bit of an understanding of timings with your transactions. There's a lot to consider when you're looking at buying property overseas in France. And yes, understanding the time scale, certainly in this hour that we're going to be getting through questions, we can hopefully focus some of the areas of our focus to some interesting places. So thank you very much. And we're just going to launch another poll there. If you can just allow me to raise that for you. So yes, I'll be talking about the currency matters to do with buying property in France. It's not just the transaction itself that you want to be thinking about. It's also ongoing costs, living costs, Potentially one day you may sell the property. Charles was mentioning about renting out property, you may have income to return back to the UK. So like I say, on the currency side, any of the matters involved in transferring money in and out of France, we can help with competitive rates. So thank you very much. Everyone's answering these polls. That's really good. So it just helps us to focus our attention for the evening. So I'm going to close that now. I'm going to pass back to Andy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jonathan. Let's start with Joanna. Joanna, I think sometimes we assume that people know about the buying process here in France, but it's very different from the UK. And a number of people, including Martin Piper, Pedro Santos, Aidan Eshraf, and Karen Casus, have also asked, can you give an overview of the buying process and the sort of costs involved in terms of notaires and government taxes?
Yeah, sure. It's quite a simple process in France, and the buyer is protected all along the way. Basically, what happens is you would find your property, you'd make an offer, the offer would be accepted, and then within a few days, generally, if all the paperwork's in and the diagnostic tests have been done, we can draw up a compromis de vente. So the diagnostic tests are the tests that are done for obviously the termites, lead paint, electricity, etc. And those all have to be done before you can sign a compromis de vente. Then once they're all done, the buyer signs the compromis first, and then the vendor signs the compromis. This is like an exchange of contracts. Once the vendor has signed, they can't withdraw, so they are then tied in, so you can't get gazumped. So it's right done at the beginning of the process, which is really good. However, the buyer has a 10-day cooling off period, in which time, if you did change your mind, you could put it in writing and pull out of the sale within those 10 days. After the 10 days, you would need to send your 10% deposit to the notaire's client's holding accounts. You can put clauses in. So, for example, if you wanted to change a barn into habitable, living space, or you wanted to put a swimming pool in, or you're getting a mortgage, all of those can be suspensive clauses, which means that if you get refused planning or you got refused the mortgage, you can withdraw from the sale after the 10 days and get your deposit back. If for whatever reason everything is all okay and everything is a yes, then you would complete the sale probably within about 3 months from signing the initial contract, and at which stage you have to obviously transfer the rest of the money over to the notaire's holding account. The notaire's fees vary depending on what area you're in and whether you're getting a mortgage or not, but they're usually between sort of about 6 and 9% of the price of the house. That notaire fee includes all of your stamp duty, it includes the land registry, it includes everything. So basically the notaire works for the government. It's not the same sort of system in the UK where we maybe have 2 solicitors. The notaire will work for both parties, and 80% of their fee actually goes back to the government because it's the taxes. So that's the one-off fee that you would need to pay. The only other thing you may have to pay is, depending on when you buy the property, is a pro rata months for the taxe foncière. So say, for example, you bought the property in June, there may be 6 months left of taxe foncière that you would have to pay as well. Other than that, it's all completed and signed 3 months after the initial sale, and you get your keys. So it's quite straightforward. And the good thing is there's no sort of, in England, I know you can complete and exchange, etc., on the same day, but in France it's much simpler. You exchange at the beginning of the sale and then complete at the end.
Thank you,
Hope
Joanna.
that helps.
Thank you, Joanna. I think one of the most important things you said there is, and I think especially for people in the UK, the fact that you can't be gazumped, I think is a very important thing in France. That whole thing of the UK where people get very excited about buying a home and then find that someone comes along and steals their thing. Thank you for that. Let's go to Thomas. Thomas, Sylvia Freeman says, can I work for a UK company while living in France, and what are the tax implications if I do?
Yeah, this is an inquiry we get quite a lot, and I think that people can sometimes be put off the idea of French residency if they've got a UK employment contract or if they've got a UK limited company, because they're worried about what the tax implications might be. But the good news is that it's perfectly legitimate for a French resident to have UK employment or to have a UK limited company. You have to be careful to make sure that if you are going down that route, that your work duties are conducted in the UK. So there needs to be a pattern maybe of travelling back to the UK at certain intervals to be able to conduct those UK duties. But it's perfectly legitimate if that's the case. From a taxation point of view, it's quite simple because you continue to be taxed on any UK salary under the PAYE system in the UK. If you're taking dividends, those dividends will be taxed separately in France as investment income. And it can also be quite beneficial from the point of view of an S1, because if you are an employee of a UK company working in France, you can get something called an S1 form, which usually is only issued once you reach retirement age. But if you're working and affiliated to the UK national insurance system, you can get this S1, and what it does is essentially it gets you into the French health system, and also it reduces your social charge liability in France, which can be quite a major thing in terms of making life in France more tax efficient. So I would encourage anybody who has a UK employment contract or UK limited company not to be put off moving to France because of that.
Thank you, Thomas. And Tracy, Sylvia asked the same question, but obviously she said the same thing about working for a UK company, but what are the visa implications? So can we answer that one?
So it really depends on where you are carrying out your work. So if you're working for a UK company, and as Thomas just said, going back to the UK, to do that work, to carry out that work, you're not officially working in France, even if you're a resident of France, then you don't need a visa to do that because you're not working in France. You would, of course, declare any income, and for social contributions, you would try and get the S1 form. If that was refused, then there would be more complications because you'd have to register with the AIRSAF. If, on the other hand, you want to work for a UK company but work from France for that UK company, that's a different scenario. So if you actually are based in France working as an employee, or even a business owner working in France for that UK company, then your company would have to register the business with the CNFE, which is basically the oversee, if you like, the organisation that looks after working abroad. They would give a registration number, and then of course you would have to, this registration would be used to be able to get the work permit through the ANF website. So it's a bit of a complicated process, and the company would have to be paying the social contributions in France for that employee in France. So it really is more about where the work is being carried out and how much time and how much of your proportion of your income is really is from that business. So I agree with Thomas on the tax side of things. It's absolutely appropriate. The S1 as well is a good thing, but the document you have to fill in to get the S1 is very complicated. So work with either Thomas or ourselves, because you have to work on the percentage of time you're working in the UK and how much revenue you're coming in. So it really does depend on, you know, where you're doing that work from. If you're working from France, then you will need a work visa, and the company should apply via the ANF website.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. Paulette, we did an overview of property buying, and Paul Harvey wants to know about the French healthcare system. So again, can you just give an overview of the French healthcare system, probably compared differently to the UK?
So this is quite hard to do a quick overview because it's probably a whole hours-long webinar on its own to try and explain the French health system, but I'll try and condense it as much as I can. So the main difference between healthcare in France and, say, the UK is in France, healthcare is not free at point of contact. So you do pay when you have a treatment, or, you know, if you visit the doctors, or, you know, pharmacy. I suppose you pay at the pharmacy in the UK anyway. But yeah, you pay for treatment. Now, there are two ways that you're going to get the cost of that treatment refunded. The first part is a refund made by Social Security. As a rule of thumb, that's 70% of the cost of treatment. But I will point out there are many more exceptions than rules. So yeah, 70% is the most common, but it's absolutely not the only percentage of refund. The the 70% of the refund you're going to get back from Social Security is based on the cost of treatment as determined by Social Security, and this is called the base de remboursement. So a consultant or treatment can cost more than the base de remboursement. So say you see the top health heart surgeon in France, he's probably going to charge more than, you know, one in a local hospital. If you see that top surgeon and they charge way more than the base de remboursement, the difference then depends on the quality of your mutual, so your health insurance top-up. So to give you a really quick example on that, dental and optical and audio treatment is very different. The 70% and the refunds are very different for that. But to give you an example, I recently had a quote for a dental inlay, which the quote was for €400. The Social Security base de remboursement is €100. So Social Security are going to give me €70 back off that. So quote for 400, so far I've got €70 due to come back to me. The rest of that is either I pay myself or I claim on my mutual. Luckily, my mutual covers 370%, so that takes it to €370. I'll end up, when I have this treatment, paying €30 for that treatment. Now, that very much depends on your mutual. So you're going to either have anything between the €70 and the 400 of the cost of treatment. The rest depends on your mutual. Some treatment like a podiatrist or psychiatrist, things like that, don't pass by Social Security. They're covered straight by your mutual. And again, that just depends on the level of cover on your mutual. So yeah, rule of thumb, 70% back from the state and the rest is covered by your mutual. That's probably as quick as I can do in less than an hour.
Thank you. Charles, let's go to you. David Williamson says, I'm looking to rent my property for holiday lets. My neighbour has offered to help. Why use a company like yours rather than rely on my very friendly neighbour?
Okay, that's a very sensible question. There are two options there. The first option, your neighbour is a professional property manager with all authorizations, trainings, insurances, financial guarantees, and then he will probably offer regular service if he's a professional property manager, just like other professional, like other property management companies, like us, similar pricing as well. Then if he's good at his job, you found the best solution, because obviously he won't charge you extra for travel, and he will be as close as you can be to look after a property. So that's the first option, and that would be a very sensible solution. Second option, your neighbor is not a professional property manager. So without the license, the authorizations, the training, the insurance, so he doesn't have the knowledge of a professional property manager, nor the training about the administrative and legal aspects of our job, or the experience, or the systems in place to look after a property, and more than look after a property, rent it out properly, professionally. He or she is just a person with good intentions, what happens to be next door, then that's another story. Could be a good solution, because obviously it won't cost you, it might not cost you as much as a professional company, but then it will not obviously bring you the same service, and the way we optimize the revenue, the way we maximize the revenue by optimizing the rentals, is not going to be the same. So the money that you might save on, you know, a non-professional property manager, that you might save because it's not automatically cheaper, will not compensate the fact that we will make you earn more money as a professional company. And there's also another aspect that we try not to push, but that people need to know. It's the legal side of it. A property manager that does rentals needs a license, the same way a real estate agent that sells houses, it's a bit more than selling houses, but that sells a house, needs a license. It's the same with a property management company in France. So if they don't have the license, if they are not registered, then they're operating illegally. I don't like to use that word, but it's the fact. They work illegally. So as reliable and nice your neighbor will surely be, if they work illegally, one day if there's an unfortunate event that occurs, you will be fully responsible, and then it's not funny at all. So obviously that's not the main thing, but there you go. You have your two options. We are happy to provide you with information, and that you compare with the pros and cons with the neighbor. It can be a very good solution, don't get me wrong, but to a certain extent, of course, which makes sense, which is why we are here.
Okay, thanks, Charles. We'll go to the dreaded money aspect of things. Sally Phillips, Jonathan says, do you provide a service that gives us an idea of how the currency market might fare in the future?
Very popular question, something I'm asked many, many times a day. What's going to happen in the markets? Contrary to certainly some people's expectations, there's no magic formula for working out what happens next on currency. The currency markets, most volatile markets in the world, there's so many different factors. If you look at shares, for example, you can look at the company and a few things going on. With currency, there's so many different factors affecting things, and it's all of them combined that causes the movement. So to help clients in what is clearly an uncertain and difficult thing to deal with, in answer to the question, yes, what we do is we look at research from all the big banks out there. Now, to give you a flavour of some of the research on pound euro, we're looking at rates between sort of 110.5 and 115 across the majority of the forecasters we've surveyed. But the far ranges on this go down as low as 107, which is actually the low we hit last year during the Liz Truss Kwasi Kwarteng episode, which some of you may remember, to highs of about 120. So you're seeing a range there of about 13 cents. And this is all the big names in banking and their predictions. So you can't say with any certainty exactly what will happen. But what we can do is share with you some of these forecasts. And as I say, we can sort of plot where the majority of the forecasters may be predicting things are going to go. What we'll also do is share with clients some of the important events that are coming up that can affect the market movements. This next month, next couple of weeks, we've got the Bank of England interest rate decision and the European Central Bank, both in the first couple of weeks of May. And they're both predicted to be quite important decisions that could really affect currency moving forward. So yes, absolutely, we can give you a service, give you some really detailed research relating to what's predicted to happen in the market. We can also share with you some of the past performance of rates as well. So we can say, look, okay, the rate might not be as high as you wanted it to be, but actually you're doing better than some of the lows, or you're very close to some of the highs, just to try and give you as much information really as possible to make those decisions. An important part of what we can do as well is when you're registered with us, you have access to a wallet, a euro wallet. So if you're buying a property in France, you're looking to buy currency, if you were going to use the banks, you're forced to accept to buy currency on certain days. You don't have the luxury of choosing when you buy. The notaire is going to say, I need your deposit within the next 10 days, and then they'll need the balance 2-3 months later on a particular date. So in terms of the timing, if you use the banks, it's very limited in when you can actually buy the currency. With Lumon, as I say, when you're registered with us, you actually get a wallet and you can buy currency at any time in that window. So if there is suddenly a particularly good day, in the middle of March, we actually had the highest point for pound euro levels this year. So certainly some of my clients who may not have been actually buying their property at that time, a lot of them won't be completing for maybe a couple of months. Some of them have locked in at those higher levels in sort of 114s. The market level was up at. Today we're down at 112, 113. So that 1.5 cents difference on the market movements, if it was £100,000, that's €1,500 less that you would be getting. So we didn't know that the rates was going to drop, but still those people saw the rates went higher. They then locked in at that price and they know what their property is going to cost them. So it's really that peace of mind and certainty element. So yeah, certainly to answer the question, we'll give you lots of information about what's going on in the market, but we'll also give you a platform, if you like, some options to actually lock in on the rate to give you that sort of system so you understand your costs.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. Joanna, let's go to you. Joanne Gilhooly asks, which regions of France are favoured and why? Similarly, which areas are less popular and therefore perhaps remain more authentic?
That's a long question to answer. Loads of areas in France, loads of regions in France are popular. You know, France is one of the most visited countries in the world with 82 million tourists a year. So everywhere, it really depends on what you need from the property. You know, all of the areas that we sell in are beautiful. So, for example, if you wanted a short journey or you live in the north, or this is if you're in the UK, of course, you may want to do Brittany and Normandy, which are really, really pretty and really good for budget because they cost a lot less than they do in the south of France. The most popular areas, Brittany is very, very popular. The southwest of France, you know, the Charente, the Dordogne, the Gironde, all of those areas are really, really pretty. And because they are pretty, and obviously France is huge, so you've got a lot of space. So the countryside around those areas, if you want countryside, is really, really gorgeous. And again, the prices, you know, you'd be looking at around 150 for an average 3-bedroom house. So really, really good prices. Then if you wanted to be, you know, have the hotter weather, you might want to go to the south of France. So you could be looking at the Languedoc-Roussillon areas, or you could be in the Pyrenees Oriental, where you could have beach and ski within an hour of each other. So there's those sort of areas are popular. The areas that we don't see so many people buying is in the east of France, like areas like the Alsace. And it doesn't mean that it's more authentic, it's just not an area that we seem to have a lot of sales, whether that's French or international buyers. That sort of area is a little bit quieter. The temperatures and the weather obviously affect the regions as well. So if you didn't really want the heat, you might want to, although it's always going to be warmer than the UK, you would possibly go to areas like Burgundy or the Limousin in central France. If you're on a really, really low budget, then the best area would be in the Creuse or in those Limousin areas where you can pick up a house for 63,000 euros, I think is the average house price in the Creuse area. So again, it really depends on your needs, on your budget, traveling distance. You know, are you going to be flying in, or is it going to be a holiday home? Are you going to move there permanently? And my best advice would be to do your recce trips before. If you can do them in the winter, all the better, because you'll be able to see what's open and what's not open, because a lot of places close down in the winter and they open up sort of between April and September. Unless you're in the Alps, or you're looking at the Alps, which is all year round tourism and rental, and obviously you've got the summer season and the ski season. So yeah, France just got so many opportunities and so much choice. There isn't really any area that I would say is favoured. It really depends on what you're looking for yourself and your personal needs.
Thank you, Joanna. Question, Tracy, this has come in, as Joanna's just mentioned about house hunting, so we'll ask this one. Rob Ronaldo has come in on the questions. He's on here now saying, what visas do you need to house hunt in France, and in what order, please?
Visa to house hunt, you don't need a visa to house hunt. So if you want to come across, if you've organised with your agents, with Leggett's, or just to come and check yourself, if you respect the 90-180 rule, you don't need a visa. You can come across for 90 days in every 180 days as a tourist with no visa whilst you're looking for your property. And then maybe once you've found your property, then start working on a visa when you want to come across more permanently. Because otherwise, you know, I mean, some people like to find the property first, other people like to request a visa first, but to come across just to look, come on your tourist visa, 90 days in every 180, that is sufficient with no visa.
Okay, great, thank you. Thomas, let's go to you. Two people have asked this question in advance, very similar question. Helen Foster and David Love, say, do I pay tax in France on my UK state and private pension, or in the UK?
The short answer to that question is, if you're living in France, you pay tax in France on both the state pension and the private pension. But that's not a bad thing. In fact, that's potentially favourable for some people. In France, we have a system of taxation, which is the foyer fiscal, which can be very beneficial for couples. So if one person in a couple maybe has quite a low pension or retirement income, and the other person in the couple has a high income, then under the UK system, one of them might be taxed at the 0 tax band, whereas the other might be taxed at the highest tax band, which is 40 or 45%. But in France, all of that income is pooled together between the couple, and the overall result is that the effective rate of tax is often a lot lower. So that's quite beneficial. Also, when it comes to pensions, I don't think many people would consider France necessarily to be a tax haven, but when it comes to pension encashments, one could conceivably argue that France is a tax haven in some respects, because there's a way that you can access a pension and just pay 7.5% French tax, which is obviously very favourable when you compare that to maybe 20 or 40 or even 45% in the UK. There are some strict conditions to be able to access the pension at that rate, and it's important to take advice on that. But I mean, for example, last month we had a client who had a £500,000 private pension, which he encashed, and he only paid 7.5% tax on that, and that is his lifetime tax liability on the pension. That capital will never be taxed again. So that can be quite attractive to some people. We have different structures in France that we sometimes use for pension planning. Sometimes that is to do with currency, because UK pensions are restricted in terms of only being able to provide an income in sterling. In other examples, it's to do with succession and inheritance. So there are structures that we can use that allow a pension to be passed tax efficiently to the next generation, often much more tax efficiently than it would have been if that particular person had stayed in the UK. So pension planning certainly throws up plenty of opportunities for people that are moving to France.
Okay, thank you, Thomas. Let's go to Paulette. She is there, as we said. She is not on screen, but she's there. Paulette, Mark Webster wants to know, does the cost of house insurance increase a great deal if you're not living in the house on a permanent basis?
Okay, so if you're not living in the property for, well, certainly with us, if the property is going to be empty more than 90 days a year, and that's not consecutive days, it's 90 days in the whole year, so that is the case generally for a second home. The cost does increase, but it's absolutely not significant. It depends on the size of the property, obviously, but I would say on average, anything between say 40 and 60 euros, so it's really not significant at all. I would say for a property that's going to be left empty, you need to be aware that your policy will probably have a clause in it to say that, say between November and April, you have a duty to empty any water systems. You have a duty of care for that property. There may be rules in there about shutters, things like that, depending on the insurance company. And I would very strongly recommend leaving a key with a key holder like Charles. We have cases where, say, there's been a massive storm, and your policy will cover damage caused by the storm, but there's also a limit on consecutive damage, and that consecutive damage can be damage that's caused by you've got half your roof ripped off and it's been like that for 3 months because nobody knows you. You haven't left a key with anybody, nobody knows. You arrive on holiday to your lovely holiday home and think, oh my goodness, we've got half a roof missing, and there's like massive amount of damage caused to the property. So I would, I really can't recommend strongly enough that, leaving a key with a key holder.
Okay, great, thank you. Jonathan, we'll go to this one because it's coming. The question came in advance, but also Tim Williams, who's on the webinar at the moment, has asked the same question. And he says a question for Jonathan, and also Conrad Bell asked the same question. What is the maximum length of time you can lock in a forward contract?
Good question. So we're talking anywhere between 1 to 2 years. So a typical finished purchase, you're looking at 3, maybe 4 months, potentially longer, sometimes occasionally a bit faster, but so we could lock in a forward for that. For anyone who doesn't know, a forward contract is the currency market version of a buy now, pay later deal. So if you were purchasing £100,000 of euros, you could put down a deposit around 5–10% and then opt to pay the balance in that window. So 3 months later, 6, 9. We can actually go forward up to about 2 years. Typically, we don't need to go that far forward, owing to how long a French property transaction will take. But certainly we can easily cover the typical timescales. Reasons for doing this: you may have your money invested and be quite happy. A common one I see is people with money in premium bonds. So they may think, oh, I want to buy some currency, but I don't want to miss out on the potential returns, earning calling out their number. So yeah, we can fix the rate. You can keep your money in your premium bonds, but you know, once you do draw that down 2-3 months later, you're going to have that rate already known in advance. Selling a property potentially in the UK. So you agree to property sale in the UK today, you know you're not going to get your money for maybe 2 or 3 months. You're agreeing to purchase in France, you know, that ties in with that sale in the UK. Again, a very popular time where you'd use the forward contract. Going back to what I mentioned in the earlier questions, you know, some of the rate predictions, you've got about 13 cents variation. It would be stressful if you were selling property in the UK in 2 or 3 months. You've agreed your purchase in France the month after, and you find once you actually get the money in your hand 2 or 3 months later from the UK sale, rates have dropped 6 cents. You know, that's going to be quite stressful. So the forward contract allows you to fix the price in for that. Just to answer another question I did see come in that does tie with this, it was how long can we hold money? We talked about the wallets before, so where you buy the euros outright, you pay for it all now, it sits in the wallet. Really, there's no specific time limit. Again, you're talking a good couple of years. So if you've got 100,000 euros today, a year later, that's still going to be 100,000 euros. There's no interest payable on that. Of course, you could be getting interest in the bank, but if that's the way circumstances have gone, that 100,000 euros will still be the same. There's no cost or charge to hold it here. After a year or two, if we've not had any contact from you, for example, then we would reach out and say, look, just to let you know, in case you've forgotten, you've got a large amount of euros here, you know, what's happening with your purchase in France or your plans. And there's options there. You could sell it back to buy sterling if you've cancelled your plans, or you could even open a euro account in France or the UK and send the money there whilst you work out what you want to do. So yes, if you've bought currency in the wallet, there's lots of options, and we can fix rates for the future if you don't quite have all the capital available to buy it out right now.
Yeah, you beat me to it because I was going to ask you that very question, so we've answered it. Okay, let's go to Charles. Tony Collins says, before we purchase a property for holiday lets, does your company provide advice on which areas of France are likely to get the best return?
Right. Before I answer this question, let me just get back to what Paulette was saying earlier about damages on the property. Just know that we provide free key holding. Other companies provide key holding, of course. We provide free key holding, and we have different fees, like regular fees, packages where we visit the property on a regular basis, and we include like emergency checkups as well. So other companies offer this as well, but we offer free key holding. So it's very important to have someone with the keys indeed. So now I can answer the question, sorry. So it was before they purchased the property, do we recommend different areas where they would get a best return? Is that the question?
Yeah, well, someone's thinking about buying, but obviously, and probably buying to then let, but wants to know whether you give advice on areas that will get the best return.
Of course. So I will also use Joanna's answer from earlier, who was talking about obviously the various areas in France. Is there a better area? We definitely help our potential clients and our clients to do the best choice possible. However, it's always difficult to give an overview of all the different areas of France with accurate and reliable data for future business in the industry and on the market. It's difficult. It can be very, very long. The best is probably to contact us when people have an idea of what they really are looking for. There are tools out there which can provide such data, of course, quite expensive and can take quite a long time if you want accurate data. But if you are looking to buy a second home, I would strongly recommend that you look for a place where you would enjoy spending time with your friends and family before you think about the potential rental income, because you might find a place that is really good for rentals, but you hate skiing, for example. Then the Alps will be great for rental revenue, but if you hate skiing, there might be summer for you, but then there might not be exactly what you're looking for. So that's what I would recommend first, is obviously to look for an area where you would want to live. You would want to, go on holiday. And chances are, if you fancy this place and if you love this place, other people will, maybe thousands of people will, and these people will need a place to stay. Just like Joe said earlier, we had 90 million tourists before COVID. Last year we had 82.9, so we're almost back to pre-COVID figures. But then we are the most visited country in the world, just like Joe said. So I wouldn't be too worried about the rental income in certain areas more than others. But definitely, there is a potential, and we can see it now with all our clients, for almost all year round short-term rentals, for weekends, for short stays, weekends, and also holidays, like school holidays, outside of the high season. So please get in touch with us when you have an idea of what you are looking for, and we can definitely help you. But it's difficult to give a full overview of all the areas in France because there are thousands.
Okay, I think that answers it. That's good. Thank you, Charles. Tracy, well, I don't know if we've had this question before, so it's worth asking, because obviously people are, if they are planning to move to France, they have to complete moving stuff with customs. Joanne Kinder says, a question regarding the customs form: can we ship goods in several loads, declaring all the goods on just one form? Does that make sense? Is that the question?
So yes and no. I mean, it depends really. You if you have 1 year to complete your relocation from the UK to France, so that's the first thing. So obviously that means you don't have to bring all over it in one go. It is important that you have the correct inventory and that your transporter, if you're working with a transporter, has that inventory, which they will then open a T1 form at the customs, so that that entire inventory is on your T1 form. And then of course, as your things come through, they will then be checked against your T1 form, and your T1 form gets closed once everything has come through. So yes, effectively you can bring things through in separate loads so long as it goes through the correct process. What you can't do, of course, is take 3 years for that, because you only have 12 months to relocate to avoid any customs duties. So of course you have to prove that through when you're leaving your country of origin, with proof that you've been living there for a year or more. And you can use your tax documents, your utility bills to prove that, and of course prove that you're moving to France definitively by having a property, having your visa in place, and sometimes you have to reach out to the local authorities to get an attestation that you are actually in that community. So that 12 months is a strict deadline. After that, even if you have still things left on your T1 form, they can't come through without paying the duties.
Okay, thank you. Joe, this question's come in and I hope you can answer it. Gino Lomon Monaco, what a name. She says, if one spouse travels to France to buy the property, can they also add his wife's name to the deed, even if she's not present, or do they have to be there in person?
For the actual signing, you can sign by proxy, like you can with most contracts. You'd probably, if one's in the UK, they'd probably have to go to a notary public in the UK and sign there, and or if you're in France and you know you're not going to be there for the final signing, but you are there for the compromis, you can give proxy to the notaire to sign on your behalf. So no, it's not. And there's also DocuSigners. You know, a lot of contracts are being done online now since COVID. You know, we were doing a lot of contracts just online. So yeah, there's lots of ways. You don't both need to be there. It's always better to be there, of course, and to go and check the property before you complete. But generally speaking, yeah, you don't need to be there. You can sign by proxy.
Okay, thanks. Thomas, let's go to you. Maura Matezic, I hope that's how I pronounced that correctly. She says, how do French inheritance laws work with regard to foreign ownership of a holiday home?
The bottom line is that regardless of where somebody is resident, if they have French property, that French property will be subject to French inheritance or French succession law, which is quite prescriptive compared to a lot of other jurisdictions. So what I mean by that is if you have children, your children are considered to be your protected heirs. And for example, if you have one child, they are automatically entitled to 50% of the value of your property when you die. 2 children get 2/3 of the property, and 3 children get 3/4. The survivor, if there's a surviving spouse, they can potentially be at a disadvantage because they only get by default 25% of the value of the property. So it can be quite prescriptive. There used to be a piece of legislation called the Brussels IV regulation, which a lot of people used to circumvent French succession law, and that allowed them to leave French property according to the law of their nationality. So that was very popular. But then we had a piece of French legislation that came in at the end of 2021, which basically said that no, if you've got French property, then it must pass according to French law. Now that is being challenged at the moment, or it's expected that it will be challenged, but that could take many years. There are certain things that you can do to ensure that property falls into the right hands. If it's a case of trying to protect a surviving spouse, what you can do is you can buy a property with a tontine clause, which is basically a clause that means that whoever is the last survivor between the 2 spouses or 2 partners, the property reverts to them in its entirety, regardless of any protected heirs. Additionally, you can change your marriage regime to a community marriage regime, which might sound like quite a major thing to do, but actually it's a simple paper exercise, and that has a similar effect to the tontine that I just mentioned. It means that the property can pass to the last surviving spouse. I appreciate the questions being asked from the point of view of a holiday home, but for people who are thinking of moving to France, it's not all doom and gloom, because France has potentially much lower rates of succession tax than in the UK. In the UK, it's just a flat 40%, whereas in France, the rates of tax are graduated 5 up to 45%. And potentially in France, you have higher allowances that you can pass on to the next generation. Depends on how many beneficiaries you have, and depends on how you structure things, but you could potentially leave more that way. So it is a very prescriptive system when it comes to French property, but there are, in other ways, the French succession system can be quite favourable.
Okay, thank you, Thomas. Jonathan, let's go to you. You may have answered this, but I think it's probably someone who likes to gamble, possibly. Tony Coulter says, do I have to lock in all my currency for a purchase, or can I trade some and wait on the rest of it, on a percentage of it? So I presume locking some in and then holding and waiting on. I'm guessing you're probably going to say that is okay, but just to clarify, really.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned a couple of times today the wallets. So once you register with us, you've got access to wallets in all the different currencies that we can trade. So in terms of buying euros, you could send us pounds, and then just like the question's asking, just trade on part of that. There's no sort of minimum or maximum, or again, timescales. you know, you don't have to have traded it within a week, for example. So using the example of £100,000, you could send that through and do 10 a week or 20 every couple of weeks. It's quite common that people will lodge funds with us, and then we'll just keep them updated on the market and what's happening. We gave some demonstrations earlier, some of the volatility that we could be seeing over the next few weeks. So with funds here, we can react quickly. We can set orders at certain points. So if you've done your sums, done your homework at 115, let's say you don't want to get less than 110. You know, we've got orders that we can put into the market to trap the rates between those levels. I did see a question as well about dollars coming in for people from the States buying in France. Of course, we service clients all over the world. We can adopt similar strategies for different currencies. Australian dollars, Canadian dollars, yeah, you can just get in touch and we can discuss that. So yeah, Andy, in answer to the question, yes, you can choose what percentage you buy and use those wallets to, you know, buy some and hold some back to buy at a later date.
Thank you. Tracy, this question came in advance, but also I noticed Leslie Carey Harris is online and also asked a very similar question. So we'll ask this one. Graham Perrin and Leslie are saying, as a married couple who will own a French property outright, what level of income is needed to obtain a visa in the first instance? Is there a level needed?
So if you're coming across as retirees, for example, so if you have a pension, there is a acquired level, and generally speaking, when you're looking at a visitor's visa, then you're looking at the minimum SMIC level, which is the minimum earner level in France. Currently, it's just actually been it's just gone up slightly, so it's about €1,300 per month per adult. However, if you are a couple, this doesn't get doubled. So I like to say to my clients to have about a €2,000 revenue per month. So if you're owning a property, that can reduce to about 1,800 per month as a couple, because you have no mortgage payments going out. And that would be, you know, when you go to through a visa process, the certain evidence you're going to show to the TLS centre, one of them being, of course, this proof of minimum earnings. So you can use different documents for that. It could be using your retirement notifications. It could be that you get dividends. It could be that you are the owner of a property. It could be that you have investment income that you're paying yourself X amount of money per month. So all these different pieces of information is what you're going to show them, and of course savings accounts as well, then any capital in there. And I do, you know, it's like I said as well, you know, capital, you know, is a good thing to have savings, but it can be spent very, very quickly. So they do like to see some sort of regular income coming in. So I would suggest, if you're for an individual person, the SMIC level is good. If you're a couple who own a property, then about €1,800 would be sufficient on a monthly basis to go through the TLS and visa process. For a visitor's visa, if you're thinking of going for a business visa, that's all very much dependent on which type of activity you're going for, and you have to show that your activity will earn that minimum level either as a salary or as a net revenue at the end of the year.
Okay, thanks. I'm conscious of time, but we'll do our best to squeeze as many as we can. Paulette, we're talking about pensioners there. John Murdoch says, how do I get healthcare at 70 years of age? Is it possible, or is that something that will be prohibited?
Okay, so I'm assuming this is somebody moving from the UK to France, because if you're in France, that's, you know, it's not an issue. You're already here. If you're moving from the UK to France, you can apply for your S1, which was talked about before. The S1 gives you exportable healthcare in France. You can use the S1 to apply for your visa. You can also use the S1 to apply for your social security number straight away. So you don't need to wait for the normal 3 months of living in France. You can apply for that social security number straight away. Once you have your social security number, you have the same rights as, say, a French national. for example, you will get the 70% refund. We have had a few clients who've thought because they've used an S1, they get the same rights as though they were still getting NHS treatment, i.e. completely free. It doesn't, it doesn't export the same. It just puts you into the French system to get the same rights as somebody in France, and then you would then apply for a mutual top-up to cover the difference of that 30% or more, depending on what the treatment is.
Okay, thanks. Joanna, I was going to go to you about a question about the whether the French market is different to the UK market in terms of taking a hit. But there's a question coming from Simone who says, there doesn't seem to be many houses coming to the market currently. Are they selling before they make it to the market? And is the property market currently different from over the past few years?
Yeah, there is a shortage of properties, so things are selling very, very quickly. Some don't even make it to market. We have buyers waiting for certain types of property. So obviously do get in touch with your agents and get the criteria of what you're looking for to them, so that if something does come on, we can get you to see it straight away. We usually hold a stock of around 16,000 mandates, which is listings, and at the moment we're down to about 7. In fact, even less than that. And the reason for that is that everything has been selling very, very quickly because the interest rates were so low. So the French domestic market was moving because people were getting mortgages for 1.1%. And that has obviously pushed the market, and things have been selling very, very quickly. That is slowing down now as interest rates go up. But there still is lack of stock. So it is definitely a seller's market at the moment. We're not expecting prices to go down. In some areas they have been going up. And as I say, if you do like a property, make sure you're in the financial position to be able to put the offer in. In the old days, when 20 years ago when I was selling, it might take a year or 6 months, 6 months to a year to sell a property. At the moment, they can sell within days or weeks. Yeah, it's a fast-moving market. The prices aren't likely to be going down, although interest rates have gone up. But that's basically how it is at the moment.
Okay, there's just somebody coming in from Tim Williams, and I think I can answer this, but Joe, if you confirm this. He says, when should I buy or contact you and start looking at properties? Is it true that Leggett do have a sort of situation where you can contact Leggett's and they will sort of inform you of properties coming up or coming onto the market?
Yeah, sure. I mean, what we do, you can obviously, the website, we've got the website, you can register with us on the website, so you can look at properties, show interest in whatever properties, fill in your criteria details, and then we put you on property alert. So every time a new property comes to market or it has been reduced in price that matches your criteria, it will automatically get sent out to you. Then when you are in a position that you want to come and look at some properties, we have an in-house sales support team. So you'll only have to deal with one person. They will, shortlist the properties with you. They'll arrange all the viewings and appointments with you and put together an itinerary of the properties that are available. But as I said, things are selling quickly. So it's best if you know when you're going to be coming to France to look, just prior to the couple of weeks beforehand, to make sure that the properties you want to see are still available. Everything on our website is available. So if you go to the site and you're looking for a reference and it's disappeared, it's because it's been sold. We don't leave properties on there that have been sold. If a compromis de vente has been signed, we take the property off the website.
Okay, thanks, Joanna. We've got 2 minutes to go, so I'm not going to ask another question because I know that we won't get to it. All I'm going to say to you is all the information is in front of you there of all our panelists. You can see their email addresses. So if you do have burning questions, you can go directly to them regarding obviously property, regarding your tax, regarding relocation, regarding property management, obviously regarding money. I'm going to say go round and get every panelist to say thank you. Just let you know that our next webinar is on the 30th of May. That's Tuesday the 30th of May, and that is going to be a Paris special. So if you're desperate to try and buy in the capital city of France, it will be a Paris special on Tuesday the 30th of May. I'm going to get everyone to say cheerio, and if there's something they burningly want to tell us, please do so, but if not, we're going to run out of time. So let's say cheerio from Joanna.
Yeah, bye everyone. Contact me at any time if you've got any more further questions, or join us on the next webinar. I look forward to seeing you then.
Okay, thank you, Joanna. Thomas, sorry we didn't get to you as many questions as we could, but this always happens, so cheerio from Thomas.
That's okay. Yeah, thank you, everybody, and I hope you enjoyed the webinar.
Paulette, who's we've got this mystery of what Paulette looks like, but you've seen her before. But hello, say cheerio.
Oh, do you know, I did my hair specially for tonight as well. So thank you for listening, everybody.
Let's say cheerio from Charles.
Merci beaucoup, everyone. Thank you very much. You can get in touch with us if you have any question. Obviously, we are available at all time, and we are happy to help you to choose your next holiday rental property.
Just to let you know, Charles is actually French. He doesn't just do that merci beaucoup just for effect. He is actually French. Let's say cheerio from Tracy.
Yes, thank you all for joining. Like Andy said, you have our details below. Moving to France is a challenging and exciting project. You will invest thousands of euros in that, but you will also invest thousands of hours. So reach out to the panelists to get your questions answered and book meetings where needed.
And finally, cheerio from Jonathan.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Thank you for attending. Thank you to all our panelists. Thank you, Andy, for hosting. And yeah, absolutely. Any questions, just reach out to any of us directly. Very difficult to get everything into this hour, as I'm sure you appreciate. I'm sure from your point of view, you want to get as much information as possible. So yeah, do take advantage of ourselves. Thank you.
Okay, apologies again for people who were asking questions. I can see there are more there. I just cannot get to them. But as I say, all the details of all our panelists are there, so you can go directly with those questions. A reminder again, Tuesday the 30th of May, if you have a burning desire to buy in Paris, we will be dealing with a Paris special on the next webinar. I'll say cheerio, and we'll see you on Tuesday the 30th of May. Cheerio.
Bye-bye.